steeplechasing on the water, motor racing in the third dimension, or a short course in purgatory. Whatever your definition of offshore powerboat racing, a principal factor in its international status has been the Daily Express South Coast race initiated by Sir Max Aitken in 1960.
I suppose I did start it, yes I did. But it does improve the boats, there's no question about that. The boats have developed enormously since this race started 7 or 8 years ago. And it is a sport which all ages can take part in. That is, men of 70, 50, 40, 30, they can all partake in this sport and thoroughly enjoy it. And then when they have raced the boat and finished the race, then that boat is a livable situation. It's a cottage on the sea, and they can thoroughly enjoy it.
Well, whether or not Gypsy Girl, Sir Max Aitken's entry for the 1968 race, may be everyone's idea of a dream cottage afloat, could be debatable. Be that as it may, the lengthened course of 198 nautical miles from Cowes to Torquay and back did nothing to discourage the entry. On the contrary, a record number of nearly 60 boats presented themselves for the detailed examination of the scrutineers. Boats ranging in size from a mere 20 to 42 feet, and in power from 80 to over 1,000 horsepower. The task of the chief scrutineer and his team is not only to ensure that boats meet the requirements of the various classes established by the regulations, but also to check their overall safety and seaworthiness. The English Channel, even in summer, can turn into a mean and vicious stretch of water, and safety in this hazardous sport has always been one of the organizers' principal concerns. As well as being varied, the entry was truly international. From South Africa, K.R. Stevens boards his Meteor II. From America, the redoubtable Don Pruitt and Magnum Tornado.
Well, if it's really rough, it's comparable to playing rugby or American-style football for about 4 or 5 hours without a break. That's the way I know how to play. For me, it doesn't make any difference. Calm and rough.
Pruitt's partner, Vincenzo Balestrieri, the Italian world champion. And in total contrast in every respect, number 185, the Honourable Edward Greenall's G, a big diesel-powered heavy weather boat designed by the American ace Jim Wynn. Ex-racing driver Ted Greenall explains his switch from the circuits to the sea.
My original hobby was motor racing, but now that I live in Jersey with very small roads and a speed limit and sea all around me, I think I'm far better trying out my speed tactics on the water.
The entry list read like a who's who of powerboat racing, with new names coming in to jostle the established and successful favorites. And an apparent new trend of technical interest, deliberately encouraged by the organizers, was the increased number of boats powered by outboard motors. Melodrama, for instance, designed by Don Shedd, built by suitors here at Cowes, and powered by 325 horsepower motors. Another outboard exponent and a distinguished lady competitor is the Countess of Arran.
It worries me certainly because I'm very frightened always of making an utter fool of myself, and I can just visualize all the men turning around saying, "Ah, woman."
While scrutineering is in progress, the Solent foams with activity as final running adjustments, engine checks, and fuel consumption calculations give competitors more than enough to occupy their time. Number 300, Partenocraft, is a late entry from Italy. All the Sevens, Sir Max Aitken's wife with her appropriately named Halmatic, Ultraviolet. Next stage, driver's briefing in a marquee on the lawn of the Royal Yacht Squadron. To stage a race on this scale in the crowded water of the Solent and across the open sea of Lyme Bay and back is a major feat of organization. Again, safety is a primary consideration, and the wholehearted cooperation of the Royal Navy is invaluable.
You say tomorrow with the wind will be moderate, which gives you a wave height of 5 to 7 feet.
Well, a calmly forecast wave height of 6 to 7 feet is worth a bouquet in any powerboat racer's language. And race day dawned, in fact, bright and clear, but there was every indication that the wind force would be force 5 and more before long. Perfect weather for the spectators, of course, who began to assemble by their tens of thousands at vantage points all along the coast. As the minutes ticked away towards the start, you could feel the excitement mounting. There's Sir Max Aitken's Gypsy Girl. Seconds to go. A rolling start at 20 knots, and they're away. Right inshore of the fleet, Tommy Sopwith's Telstar makes a brilliant start. The outboard Melodrama is well up with Telstar as they stream eastwards up the Solent towards Southsea. Last year's winner, the Gardner brothers Sir Fury, Telstar, Bill Shand Kidd's Ultimatum, and Delta. And Ultimatum takes an early lead. Delta is crewed by the young Gardner cousins, sons of the brothers Charles and Jimmy, aboard Sir Fury. And Tim Powell and Norman Barclay have rally driver Paddy Hopkirk aboard their UFO. Melodrama making the most of the smooth water, but here's what's meant by jockeying for position in powerboat racing. Pruitt and Balestrieri and Magnum Tornado came to grips with the Gardner brothers and Sir Fury. Delta becomes involved in a duel with Little Melodrama. And here's J.R. Kennelly's Maltese Magnum fighting to get into the leading bunch ahead of Ted Greenall's G. Back to Cowes, and on the return leg from Southsea, Sir Fury and Magnum Tornado have burst out into a clear lead on the pack. The Italian-American partnership in Magnum versus the British crewed and built Sir Fury. The Gardner brothers, a remarkable combination and last year's winners, accepting this instant challenge from Magnum and prepared to dispute every yard of the 198-mile course. A 55-knot duel at close quarters between the spectator boats and within yards of the sacred confines of the squadron itself. The younger Gardners in Delta keep the family flag flying and are third. Tommy Sopwith with Telstar is fourth. Ultimatum fifth. And the Partenocraft making up for a slowish start sixth. And Melodrama seventh, and the leading outboard has made the most of the sheltered Solent to keep in touch with the heavy metal and shake the experts. Maltese Magnum has dropped back a bit, eighth. And Delta Tornado, Balestrieri's second boat, ninth. Not the only one to find the pace a trifle hot. It's the best burn-up the Solent has seen for a year, and even the C&C Portsmouth looks pleased. There's a fierce fight for second place amongst the outboards and 12th and 13th overall between the Countess of Arran's Badger, number 82, and number 9, Red Alligator, entered and driven by local hotel proprietor Fred Shaw. On down the Solent to Yarmouth and across to Hurst, but still only feet separate the two leading boats. The Gardner brothers on Sir Fury and Balestrieri and Pruitt on Magnum Tornado watch each other like a pair of sparring boxers, and now they have the opportunity to show their footwork. They're still averaging over 50 knots, and once clear of the Needles, the chop begins to rise. Only a little over a minute behind, their courage making up for their lack of experience, come the younger Gardners and Delta. Fourth now, Ultimatum, though Tommy Sopwith and Telstar are still around in the smother of spray. Maltese Magnum and UFO are now having a private duel in 7th and 8th positions, and as the rough water predicted by the forecast becomes a certainty, it's clear that sheer speed alone will not win this race. The sea-keeping capabilities of the boat, the strength of its structure, and the skill and courage of the crew are what matter when the water gets lumpy. Still, Melodrama is there, not only the leading outboard, but 10th overall. But compare the ride she gives her crew to the long stride of Ted Greenall's G, which carries a special ballast tank in the bow for conditions just such as these and worse. The Countess of Arran and Badger 4 fight on bravely, but this is the last we see of her. She retires at Weymouth. Number 541, RMD Jensen's Scavenger, is also nearing the end of her run. Already there have been 13 retirements from the 55 who started, and sad to say, Lady Violet Aitken is not to be with her husband this time amongst the finishers. As news of what promises to become an epic struggle is fed back to race control and the spectators, the excitement at Anvil Point, the next inshore observation post, becomes intense. And in the big seas running off Durlston Head, there, sure enough, are two smothers of foam, still as close together as when last seen. The Gardner brothers and Sir Fury are still running neck and neck with Pruitt and Balestrieri aboard Magnum Tornado. Still Delta and the younger Gardners in third place, but taking a fearful hammering. And indeed, they are shortly to limp into Weymouth at the end of a gallant try. Fourth is Maltese Magnum now, her single 450 horsepower engine producing all the power her crew could handle in this sea, and enough to keep her in touch with boats twice as powerful. Ultimatum is sixth behind Telstar. UFO number 123 has fallen back from Maltese Magnum number 040 after their long duel in the Solent. But whatever the conditions in powerboat racing, fortunes can change in the twinkling of an eye. And now it's Maltese Magnum's turn to be beaten by the unequal struggle to maintain racing speeds in such a sea. On to Portland Bill, the dreaded tidal race off the rocks, and the sea is running big and breaking. But incredible as it seemed, Sir Fury and Magnum Tornado were still within spray-throwing distance of each other. Never in the history of the sport had such a close duel for the lead in a heavy weather race persisted for so many miles. Crest to crest and trough to trough, the two crews fought each other for every wave. But the crafty and experienced Gardner brothers had the better seaboat, and by now they knew it. As they stood off from Portland Bill for the 50 miles of open sea across Lyme Bay, Sir Fury and Magnum Tornado were locked in a war of attrition, which showed every indication of ending only in the destruction of one or both. But Tommy Sopwith and Charles de Selencourt, our third with Telstar, had other ideas. Choosing an inshore course to follow the coastline, they gambled on their ability to dodge the heavy head seas and thereby make up for the extra distance they set themselves in their passage round rather than across Lyme Bay. Magnum Tornado and Sir Fury continued their epic struggle under the watchful eye of brave Borderer, the Navy guard ship. But now, a clear 5 minutes ahead of them, Telstar shot into the shelter of Torquay, tearing between the spectator boats at over 50 knots and increasing her advantage with every second that her single engine could be kept wide open. Almost unable to believe that their ruse had worked so well, Tommy Sopwith and Charles de Selencourt set course for the long run home with their fingers crossed. Out in the bay, the inevitable happened. Magnum Tornado slowed, stopped. Pruitt and Balestrieri were forced to concede their duel to the Gardners. Too late, they realized the true gravity of their situation, and though they were picked up by brave Borderer, Magnum Tornado was lost. Confident that they had broken the back of the opposition, the Gardner brothers sped rejoicing into Torquay. They failed to spot the lingering wake of Telstar ahead of them and to read the signal indicating that they were second. They set course for Portland and Cowes, convinced that they had the race in their pockets. The news of all this drama spread up the south coast as if conveyed by beacon fires. Could little Telstar, 25-foot overall, reckoned to be a fair-weather boat, and with her single engine developing only 600 horsepower, hold on to the finish against Sir Fury's 1,050 horsepower and 36-foot? As anxious as anyone for the answer was Wilf Souter of Cowes, the builder of Telstar to Don Jed's design, a combination to earn an extraordinary reputation before the day was out. And here they come, the two young men whose courage and enthusiasm is typical of the sport, and the boat that proved her ability to take the hammering which had demolished craft more than half as big again as herself. The story captured the hearts of the enormous crowds. But many a bitter disappointment had taught both Sopwith and de Selencourt that the final few miles can be the most cruel. Physically battered after 6 hours of continuous strain, every beat of Telstar's engine became to them almost as important as their own pulses. But they made it. Not at record speed, the weather and the double journey had seen to that. In fact, they averaged a mere 33 knots over the 198 nautical miles from Cowes to Torquay and back. But this was Tommy Sopwith's second victory. He won the first Cowes-Torquay in 1960, and it was a victory which all concerned had every possible right to celebrate. Sir Fury came in a full 10 minutes later, her crew still thinking that theirs was the winning gun. Tommy Sopwith had judged Sir Fury to be the boat to beat. He'd beaten her. But Charles and Jimmy Gardner had added to their reputation as a truly remarkable pair, and like the sportsmen they are, they swallowed their disappointment and fatigue to lose no time in congratulating the victorious team. Next day, in the Round the Island race, Sir Fury was to turn the tables on Telstar. But meantime, in comes UFO to take third place in the hands of Tim Powell and Norman Barclay, while their third man, Paddy Hopkirk, nurses a damaged toe as a souvenir. The Gardners were only 1 minute and 50 seconds ahead of UFO, and after 200 miles of heavy going, only 12 minutes and 13 seconds covered the first three. A close as well as a dramatic race. Fourth was Ted Greenall's G, fifth Sir Max Aitken's Gypsy Girl, sixth Spirit of Ecstasy, seventh and the leading outboard Melodrama. But every one of the 18 crews to finish had something to celebrate, and perhaps to brag about, however distinguished the company. For the Daily Express Cowes-Torquay Cowes International Offshore Powerboat Race of 1968 was indeed a race to remember.